want is that we leave here today knowing what we've got our hands on. And knowing that this time next year, when we all get together, some of our lives will have changed. And if you get it right from now on, you could be one of those people whose lives have changed. Difficult to know what that means. If you're brand new in the room, what does it mean that it's an opportunity to change your life? We hear it a lot. You've heard a lot of stories, Tina, many others, how their lives have changed. I want to share with you not only how the Forever opportunities changed my life, but what I had to do to make that change. Because let me be completely honest, Forever will not change your life. You have an opportunity to take the opportunity that Forever offers and use that and work with it to change your own life. So I've got a few slides which I want to share with you. So this is me once upon a time. This is me. That is, thank you, why, thank you. That is me about 20 kilos ago. I had a career as a photographer for a while, but not a photographer, a glamorous photographer like Xander. I worked at Butlins. That picture was taken at Butlins in Pwllheli, and I had a great time as a photographer, a few years doing that. I worked in the film industry briefly. I left school when I was 15. 16 was the official age, but there was a kind of mutual agreement between me and the school that I didn't need to show up anymore. And I had several adventures. I wanted to get out and explore life. I've ended up in London, and I started a comedy club. At the time we called it alternative comedy. It was just when comedy was starting, and it was one of the first comedy clubs in London, and I had a great time. And it was a very successful club and a very highly thought of club, and I was very proud of it. And I did that for a long, long time. The club is still going, but when I got to about 35, I kind of had a vision of, at 35 it's great to find yourself in the West End at 5 o'clock in the morning, having had a party all night and doing that every night of the week. But at 35 you start to think, can I be doing this when I'm 45? Can I be doing it when I'm 55? And the answer was no. I didn't want to be one of those kind of older people trying to groove with the youngsters. So I think I needed a change. And I looked around and I tried loads of things. I tried loads and loads of things. I got businesses. I knew I didn't want a job. I have always felt that the job, I've tried them. When I left school, I had a few jobs, and they never really suited me. Happily, I've never been made redundant from a job, but I have been sacked a number of times. Apparently, I didn't have a very good attitude. And I'm quite pleased about that, to be honest, because I wanted a life of freedom, adventure, fulfillment, fun. I knew that I needed to earn some money to do that, because I tried it the other way. I tried it without earning any money, and it's tough to have a life of freedom. But then when I worked, I didn't have any time. I wanted a combination of my own freedom to my own time, and at the same time enough money to enjoy it. And that was the vision, that was the mission. How was I going to finance having a life of freedom and adventure? So eventually I found Forever. I bought a couple of franchises, started several businesses, some of which worked a bit, some of which didn't. I found Forever, and I could see that people were making the Forever business work, and I knew I needed to learn how to make it work. I had to learn how to set clear goals. Now, I discovered about myself that I had actually always been goal-driven. It was just that when I was young, in the pictures that you saw earlier, my goals were just to get drunk, to get high, and to get laid, and that was about it. And I didn't really have any goals that would allow my financial future, the foundations of my financial future to be set down. So I knew I had to have some goals which were kind of more grown-up goals. And I knew I had to learn, I could see that this was a people business. I needed to learn better communication skills because I was not a good communicator. I was very much in the kitchen at parties sort of person for two reasons. One, kitchens are generally small, so not many people, so you didn't have to talk to many people. Secondly, that's where the booze was, which made it a bit easier to talk to people. And so I had to learn how to communicate, how to build, how to network. I recognized I needed a business strategy because I could see that here was a real business that I would need to build a strategy for if I was going to move it forward. And I had to learn how to develop an attitude where I wasn't going to give up, because I had, over my life, tried many, many things, and when I found something hard or wasn't working, I found it very easy to give up and try something else. This was a characteristic of mine, and I could see I needed to change that about myself. So eventually I was able to settle on some clear goals, and Greg yesterday talked about the importance of writing goals down, and until I wrote my goals down, they never worked for me. So I had to define what freedom meant. I knew I wanted freedom. That was it. And I remember sitting down with Jane Leach, and she at a planning meeting, he said, "What do you want? What are your goals?" And I said, "I just want freedom." And she threw her pen down and she said, "Well, we can't measure that, can we?" And I thought, okay, fair enough, we can't. I need to find something that we can measure. And so here are some of the goals that I set. I defined freedom in that I wanted to be able to work when or if I liked. I'm not afraid of hard work, I just don't want to be doing it all the time. I knew I wanted to live in a cottage in the country. I didn't know where, I just had this vision of a cottage in the country where I knew I wanted to be debt-free. The burden of debt was awful. I was actually, when I started Forever, we were on the verge of losing our house because of the debt that I built up with some of the failed business ventures and living beyond our means and credit cards and all that kind of stuff. And month on month, it was a struggle to pay the mortgage, and it looked like we were going to lose the house. And I wanted to clear all the debts. I wanted to clear the mortgage. I wanted financial security. I didn't want to be rich. All I wanted was a richer quality of life. I needed to learn how to understand people, to recognize that people buy people first. These are really important things. People almost never remember what you said. So standing up in a room in front of people and being able to explain things, not really that critical. People rarely remember what you did, but they will always remember how you made them feel. I had to learn this, and I had to always be focused on how the person that I was interacting with was feeling about whatever it was. And I wanted to create good feelings with them around the business. And this is a really important communication skill. And I would say if you only take one thing away with you, this is the important thing. To always be aware that you can have an impact on the way people feel. And if that impact is positive, then they will want to be around you more. And if they want to be around you more, you can influence them to make good decisions for themselves. You don't have to know what to say all the time. All you have to do is be interested. I have discovered that if you're interested in somebody and you communicate that you're interested in somebody, then they will find you interesting because they're talking about their favorite subject. So learn to ask questions, learn how to look interested. Now there are loads and loads of courses that you can go on, how to learn how to look interested in people. I'm just going to give you one tip that makes all those courses irrelevant. Be interested. Because, if you're interested in people, it'll show and they'll want you. And that's all you need to do. Remember that they are always thinking, whenever you're telling them the facts, remember Claire earlier on talking about anthraquinones and mucopolysaccharides, and you don't have to tell people all that kind of stuff, because they are always, you've got to always imagine them thinking, don't tell me what you can do, tell me what you can do for me. It's all about them. Whether they choose to buy a product, it's because the benefit to them. If they choose to join the business, it's about the benefit to them. We need to be always developing that level of empathy so that we're thinking about those people. Because people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. It's a cliche, but the thing about cliches is they're cliches because there is some kernel of truth in them. So we need to just not learn these things, but apply these things every day in every interaction. And it's quite hard because you have to change things. You have to stop being sarcastic, stop undermining people, stop sneering. These are difficult things because we grow up in a culture where we look cool if we are cynical. We need to change this. I needed to change this. I needed to learn that words are important tools. So I collected phrases. I still do. I'm an avid collector of good words and phrases. And I use them. I practice them in the car or something like that. Good turn of phrase. You hear something and I pinch it and I make it my own. Because we have to get good at this. We have to get good at making people want to learn about what Forever could do for them. This is the key communication skill. And remember that it's not actually the words that count that much, it's the way we say them. And you know, your expression on your face, on your body language, there are loads and loads of courses that you can go on to learn how to body match and get the right expression, and when they cross their legs, you cross yours, and fold your arms, all this kind of stuff. Loads of courses. But I tell you, when you're in a conversation with somebody, if you're having to think about all that stuff, it's a cold conversation. You don't need to go on all those courses. What we need to learn is how to care about the person that we're talking about. Be present in that moment with that person. Be interested in them. Because these are simple human things, but if we learn how to do things well, and we learned yesterday about the importance of the 1% increase in performance, if we learn how to do these things, these simple things, well, then it can change your life forever. There is no magic about building a big business in Forever other than developing these simple skills, which anybody can do. Learn how to ask questions. There's a great book, Questions Are the Answers, by Alan Pease, on Barry's book, Barry the Book's stall as you go out. If you haven't got that book or the CD, I would encourage you to do it, because if you want to be interested in people, we need to get them talking, and the best way to do that is to ask questions. These are skills that are worth learning. Learn why people say no, because some of these reasons we can avoid. Some of them, if you're inept, and let's face it, all of us are when we start, you can actually turn what would otherwise be a yes into a no. So we need to learn why people say no. Learn why people say yes. We can avoid pushing them into the no camp and learn how to draw them towards the yes camp. And if you learn these skills and teach these skills, and we teach by sharing what we've learned with people, but also through our example, you will develop confidence in the people who join you. And the confidence of the people in your downline is the biggest business asset you have. It's really easy to undermine it by being a jerk. So here's a tip. Don't be a jerk. Learn how to focus on the people and help to develop their confidence. I just want to share with you how my life changed, because by learning these skills, simple skills, and becoming a professional networker, my whole life changed. So, just in the middle there, that's my cottage, our cottage. We bought it for cash. We had been in the bit within 4.5 years of starting in Forever. I paid off all the debt that I'd built up. Now, I'd taken a consolidation loan with a 25-year term. It was going to take me till I was 63 to pay it off. My whole life was going to be blighted by paying off this debt. I paid it off in 4.5 years instead of the 25 years I was scheduled to pay it off. When we bought the cottage, it's in Dorset, a lovely, fantastic village in Dorset, idyllic village. We bought it for cash. And we borrowed a bit of money to do it up, but within 18 months after that, we'd paid that mortgage off as well. So within 6 years, we were completely debt-free, we'd bought our own cottage, and we were completely mortgage-free. Just through applying myself and learning those communication and interpersonal human skills that I shared with you. These are some pictures of the village, the Dorset countryside. That's our garden. I always wanted a garden. We love gardening. Both of us love our garden. So it's a kind of blank canvas. So these are some pictures from our garden. We grow our own food. Not all of it. We don't grow rice and potatoes and all that kind of stuff, but we grow the kind of things that are nice to eat when you go out into the garden. So strawberries. And I love picking. When I used to go to my granny's, my great-grandma's, when I was 4 years old, she grew peas in her back garden. And in the summer, we'd go out there, my sister and I, and we'd pinch the peas off there and just eat them from the shells. And it was great. And so I grow peas now as a kind of, and I go out and I still pinch my own peas now. They never get as far as the kitchen. I always eat them from the vine. I have a vineyard in Dorset, in the village. It's actually an allotment in the village, which I've planted in vines. And everybody in the village thought I was mad to do it. And maybe I am, but the wine is great. And I tell you what, it's fantastic being in your own vineyard, pruning the vines or harvesting the grapes. Nice setting for it. I love wildlife. I love nature and wildlife. And Dorset has got a really high proportion of wildlife reserves. This is some pictures I took locally. These birds are quite rare, in fact, very rare in the UK. And we have them on a reserve close to us. This is the view from just above our house. I just love spending my time going to nature reserves and being able to photograph and just observe the wildlife. I've learned to sail. I've been in Forever. In fact, we had a yacht for a while. But this is here because this is Weymouth, which is quite close to where we live. And I go diving from Weymouth. I learned to scuba dive because there's a whole new world under the sea to explore, a natural world. This is me doing a bit of work, because I do a bit of work as well. It's important to remember that the lifestyle I have is a result of the work that I've done. So occasionally I do a bit of work. This is, I think that's in the south of France. We have an apartment in the south of France as well, where we like to spend some of the time. It's surrounded by mountains, which is a nature reserve. It's actually a newly formed national park in France. And so it's got mountains, loads of wildlife, great diving, and nice beer and wine. What more can you want? We spend time in the Lake District. We've always loved the Lake District, so I like spending time in the hills and the mountains. I took this picture, actually. Peter Kemble, who you heard from earlier, who's become a great friend of mine, he's a real mountaineer, and as you saw from his pictures, and he took me climbing up here, which ended in a little bit of a tricky moment, it has to be said, but it's still a nice picture. So Lake District, me and Peter wild camping near the summit of the highest mountain in England. Oh, this is a view. This is La Ciotat in the south of France, where we have our apartments, and in that bay and around the headland there, that's where I go diving sometimes, and it's got mountains around it. It's not far from the Camargue. So the right season, we can drive out to the Camargue, which is just a paradise, a wildlife paradise, and spend time there. All of these things take time, and it's not happened by accident. It's happened as a result of the business that I've built through learning those skills that I shared with you early on. I want you to be thinking while I'm sharing these pictures, does Andy Waring think it was worth the effort of learning those things? Because for me it was. Again, this is in the Camargue. That's me doing a bit of work. Because I do some work. It's a communications business, obviously, so occasionally I communicate with people, phone, Facebook. This is, again, dive center in La Ciotat. This is when we travel, that's Lake Tahoe, somewhere else in the world. This is me doing a bit of work. You're getting a theme. So, although I work, it's about living a richer life. And I get to define what that is. See, for many people, it will be different. For most people, for everybody, it's going to be different to the life that I want to live. But for me, I've been able to say what's important to me and live my life accordingly. This is a boat that we bought. We bought it at the boat show, and I paid cash for it. Now, normally when you buy a boat, you get what they call a marine mortgage. You don't get a loan, you get a marine mortgage because it costs about the same to buy a boat as it costs to buy a house. When you buy your own boat and have it launched, you get to name it, and we called it Forever Freedom because it was such an apt name. We kept it in the Caribbean. Now, I grew up in a mining town in Yorkshire. I left school at 15. I bet there aren't many people who left school at 15 from Pontefract who are able to say, I've got a boat which I bought for cash, which we keep in the Caribbean. We used to fly out there a couple of times a year and sail. We kept it for 6.5 years. Visited everywhere in the Virgin Islands and several other places too. These are a couple of pictures from it. My brother-in-law was a miner, and we took them out for sailing, a couple of weeks sailing. They'd never been sailing, and I like this picture as well because that's the one, we took them to a desert island, which we know. So there's the only people on that island is my sister and brother-in-law. And so I took a picture of them from our boat, and at the same time, or not exactly, but they took a picture of us on the boat out there. Isn't that an amazing thing to be able to share with people you love? To have these shared experiences. One of the things I've done in forever, had the pleasure of making some great friends, one of whom, Sam Wedekeli, became the managing director of East Africa. And he invited me out there to speak at their Success Days a few times. And I said, Sam, I'll come out, but it's a long way. I'll come out on if you will say you'll take me on a 2-day safari. You'll pay for a 2-day safari. I thought, and he said, yeah, I'll do that. Anyway, I went out, did the training, was doing manager trainings, training here, no talk of this safari. And I thought, he's forgotten. And the night before, I'd done all the training, so I'd fulfilled my part of the bargain. And night before, I said, Sam, you haven't mentioned this safari. Have you forgotten? He says, no, I haven't forgotten. I said, well, is somebody going to come and pick me up? Do I have to get to the airport? What do I have to do? He says, don't worry, I'll pick you up in the morning. Okay. So he turns up in his Range Rover, and there's his wife there, Leosi, his son, and we're off on a family holiday. And it turns out that Sam, who I met in Brighton, he grew up on this nature reserve in Kenya called Nakuru. His dad was one of the very first curators of this nature reserve. And so he'd grown up in this nature reserve. And what he did was take us to all these places where he grew up. He knew the water holes, he knew where this animal was. And so it was a way of him sharing this with Leosi, his son, 18-year-old son, and taking me. What a fantastic experience to have that closeness. These are just some of the pictures that I took at the time. And we got out of the car and walking, and this wasn't an organized thing. This was me with somebody who had grown up here. That's a bit close to get to a rhino, by the way, I've since learned. First time we were leaving Nairobi, and I said, zebra, zebra. And he said, where? And they're about half a mile away. And he says, oh, you're going to see a lot more than that. And it was just as if nothing. And then we got a bit closer, and there was some buffalo. I said, buffalo, buffalo. Oh, no, you don't worry, we're going to. And we did. We saw them a lot closer. We got very close. In fact, when we saw this lion, it was just crossing the road, sort of diagonally across the road. So we stopped the car, and it was walking across, and it then started walking down the side of the car. And I'd got the window open, and of course, I'd got my camera out, taking pictures of this lion, and suddenly I found this hand on my shoulder and heard the electric window pulling me away from the window and the electric window going up, because I hadn't realized that about 250 people a year get killed by lions, mostly through sticking their head out of an open window when one of them's walking by. And then I took up diving, and this is some diving. I've had some great opportunities. This is an extinct volcano in Hawaii where I went diving. I've been diving in Hawaii with Mark and Steph. We went diving in Cancun and Cozumel. I've just got back from Mauritius with Gary Easter's wedding, who's sat there. They just got me. It was a fantastic time we had in Mauritius, and I was diving every day, even the day of the wedding. I had 2 dives in the morning before the wedding. It was absolutely brilliant. And this is a place we stayed in in Malaysia when we did the rally in Singapore. We always take a bit of a break. Now, they call them chalets, but they're open to the elements. There's just 8 of them in this. They call it a resort. So there's 8 chalets on the beach with a bar. So that's what they are. This is the view from the beach that you can see there. That's the dive shop. And it has a nice bar and a nice restaurant. Very exclusive place, but very laid back. So for me, what the money buys are these exclusive experiences. It's not lavish. There weren't guys with white gloves serving you all the time. It was just an opportunity to experience a pristine landscape. One of the things that I've always loved all my life is history, prehistory. I've always wanted to be on an archaeological dig, and this last summer I had the privilege of being on 2 archaeological digs. And this is one of my trenches. This is something I excavated. Now, if you're into that kind of thing, that is an incredibly exciting thing to do. But I took 6 weeks out of the summer on the 2 archaeological digs. And I tell you what, 6 weeks is a long time, because you've got to fit in the diving, you've got to fit in the south of France, you've got to fit in all the nature stuff as well, occasional phone call. It's tough making the time. Went to Botswana. So after the South African rally, as you know, Forever jets you off somewhere exotic every year, and we always like to take a holiday, sort of tag on with it, because you've gone all that way anyway, you might as well explore it. And we decided to explore Botswana, the Okavango Delta, which is this unspoilt wilderness. And they don't have any hunting in Botswana. It's only photographic safaris. And so you're landing on these little airstrips. When you go to catch a plane, so we did 2 centers, so we had 3 hops down these airstrips. And you have to arrive at the airstrip half an hour early. Not because there's any customs or anything like that, because there's nobody there, but you've got to be there half an hour early, because it's your job to get any wildlife off the runway so the plane can land. And on one of them, there was an elephant on there, and it had relieved itself on the runway. And have you seen elephant poo? It's the size of footballs, and when there's a dozen of them, so we were having to move them off the runway so the plane didn't crash. So this is they call these lodges, and you're under canvas, but they're the most luxurious kind of tents that I've ever stayed in. So that's the view out of that window. You can lie in that bed and look out of there, and it looks out over this amazing, there's wildlife all around. So this is the lake that it looks over, and there's an elephant coming towards us, and it was quite curious. That curious. That's just the most amazing thing, to have wild animals come and have some kind of moment with them. Have you ever drunk amarula? It's made from the fruit of this tree, and the elephants love it. And so they come and shake the tree, and they fall down, and sometimes they ferment, and so the elephants get a bit drunk. You do not want to be on the wrong side of a drunk elephant, I can promise you. So I took loads of pictures. I love photography, and I'm just going to whip through these so that you can see the kind of time that we had. In these places we came across this lion, and you can tell it's a male because of the mane around its neck. So we came, and we thought, is it dead? But no, it was just having a little nap in the shade on this track, and we're able to follow it. That's pretty close to be able to take a picture of a lion like that. And wildlife, and just observing them. The birds were amazing. It's a wetland, and wetlands always attract birds, and that's good. That was a good picture. And so I was pleased with that. So all these different animals, birds, exotic birds. Africa's just the most amazing place to be able to spend time in, and because you can't take pictures like this just kind of on a tour. You have to spend time and go to a particular location, know the habitat, and be able to do that. So all these different, I'd explain all the names, but I'm sure you're not really interested in them. This was one of my favorite pictures. Watched this bird for ages, and then it took off. Isn't that a spectacular color, that an animal can look like that? Isn't that just an amazing thing? And again, these bee eaters. Every evening, this is what I love. So you got all the wildlife, but every evening that you had a sundowner. And you have it as the sun goes down, but somewhere out. The first day we arrived at this water hole. There were hippos in it, the sun setting behind it, absolutely stunningly beautiful. And somebody had set up a table, and I thought we were going to be the only people here. And this table had just had drinks on it, and I thought, there's obviously some other people. So anyway, we took our pictures, and then our guide, because it was just me, Viviane, and our guide, the driver, who just knows everything about the wildlife there, took us over to the table which they'd prepared for us and mixed as our sundowner. Now that is cool. To be in the wilderness and have a gin and tonic while you're looking at these hippos, that close, is just, what an experience. To be able to have that. We found these cheetah, we tracked them. Well, when I say we tracked them, I obviously gave my advice and my opinion to the guide as we were traveling, but he did most of the tracking, it has to be said. And here they are on a kudu, and it's a kind of antelope that they brought down. And we got so close, you could actually hear them chewing on the gristle. Now, I know that sounds gory, but it's nature. And it's just to be so close, to be involved with this kind of thing is an amazing thing. And we found them the next day as well, and they were still digesting the food, the meal that they'd had the day before. This is one of my favorite pictures from that. You know, we were in what's called a concession. So these are from the days of big game hunters. And it's an area where only one guide and one group is allowed. And some concessions are quite big groups, but in this concession, it's just these tiny, tiny groups. So, and the animals just go through the area, and you've kind of got it to yourself. It is unbelievable to have this. One night we slept out under the stars on this platform. Viviane was very concerned about this when I'd arranged it, because she imagined we were kind of camping out in the wilderness, which of course we were, but it's in a nice double bed, and they'd prepared it with a mosquito net. There's a decanter of sherry there, coffee there for the morning. A troop of baboons go by in the middle of the night in the dark. That's quite a scary thing. And this is the view from that bed, just as the sun was setting. So loads of different animals. This is having a sundowner sometime. We went around in that vehicle, just the three of us, to do that. So, the question I want to ask you is, was it worth the effort that I put in? For the first year, I got so much wrong. For 6 months, my business didn't grow at all. It took me another 6 months to get to manager. I was still an assistant supervisor after I'd been in the business 6 months. It was humiliating. But I had to learn my skills. And I did, and I went to training after training. I didn't just go to a training. I went to training after training after training. Picked up one thing here, one thing there, every month. I volunteered for business presentations. I went to 2 business presentations a week. One in Oxford where I lived and the other in Warwick. I would drive an hour to this other second business presentation because I needed to learn the words people used. I needed to practice it. I needed to get good. Because I knew if I was to get good at this, I could make my life improve. I worked hard. You can see now, I don't work particularly hard. That was why I worked hard. So that I could spend the rest of my life not working hard, not with my nose to the grindstone. But I had to put the work in. The danger is people see somebody like me now, and they imagine that I'm a natural at it, and that everything's come easy. And I can promise you that all of the people that you see achieving things on this stage, we all come from different backgrounds, we all have different aspirations, we have different goals, we have different ways of defining what the ideal life is. But one thing we all have in common is that A, we didn't find it easy, and B, we had to work hard to get better at it. And that's a continuing process. So, the reason for sharing this with you now is because we are on the verge of a new year. And you can decide what that year will bring you. You can decide whether you want to design your own life, as Peter said a little while ago. You get to decide that. But you don't get to decide it by wishing for it. You get to decide it by applying yourself to developing the skills, to improving how effective you are, and focusing on that, on developing a business that will move you through the marketing plan. And if you are prepared to do that, you can have anything you want in your life. I hope I've given you some food for thought. I hope you choose to take the harder route. Because most people who join this business take the easy route and say, I'm no good at that, it's too hard, I'll find something else. Guess what? They'll never find something else as good as the opportunity forever offers. The harder route is to recognize that you need to develop your skills and to go to work developing them, and to help other people overcome their own inhibitions as well. I hope that you make that choice. And I hope that in some small way, the things I've shared with you now adds to what you've learned in this 2 days. And from this 2 days, you are inspired to go away, set some goals, and set a plan, and get to work. Thank you very much for listening to me. Great to spend the time with you.
Get your motor